The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Good morning. And
live from the Riv, it's Spindle City Straight Talk. Go, CJ. I'm your host, Chip, and there's CJ.
And I'm CJ. And again, another live show. It should be fun. And we do have a guest for the hot seat today, so we'll going to get right to business. Last night, the South End Neighborhood Association, which its president is Representative Alan Sylvia, had a presentation by city mayoral aide or chief of staff or whatever title they wanted to give her to pay her outrageous salary, and I believe Ken Pacheco. And from the reports that were given to us, and we will have video on this probably at the next show, it turned into a melee. There was arguments, fights, yelling, screaming, ranting and raving, pointing of fingers. I think the administration and DCM need to take the hint. Nobody wants to hear it. But, you know, it is what it is. Before our show today, I was in CVS, and they finally set up the pay-as-you-throw bags in the front of the store, in the aisle going down to the pharmacy, and they had a yellow sign on it, and the old lady walked by it and said, "I'd like to take these pay-as-you-throw bags and shove them somewhere." So, you know, they're getting a little upset out there, and it's happening more and more that we're just not going to handle this. And I know people are upset, and it's all coming to fruition, Chip. I mean, this is going to be one heck of a fight.
It is true that pay-as-you-throw is the straw that broke the camel's back. And that will segue us into yesterday's Herald News article, which, by the way, I was very disappointed in. I spent a half an hour on the phone with Joe Good and gave her a lot of things to write, and all she did was talk about how expensive it was going to be to have a recall. The problem we have here is that I don't care how expensive it is. If there's one thing we have to find the money for is to allow the people, the voters, the taxpayers, to speak. If we can find $9,000 to put doors in City Hall, $5,000 to put a ceiling in the mayor's shower, if we can blow $115,000 appealing a case that we knew we couldn't win, Dominion, if we can put a $100,000 fountain in a postage stamp sized park that's 3 blocks away from one of the largest parks in the city, we can find $58,000 to have a recall election. And whether you agree or not, you will have a voice. I find it rather ironic that people are upset that voters and taxpayers want to be heard. It's almost like this isn't America. This is Russia. We've been called names. We've been vilified. Not that we care, but because I could scratch like the Corporation Council right now to the people, because the fact is that I'll defend your right to disagree with me. However, this is America. This country was created on the right to speak. And the Declaration of Independence also tells us we not only have a right, but we have an obligation to change governments that are not working for the people. So with that, if you agree or disagree with the recall, don't tell me it's too expensive, because that's un-American as far as I'm concerned.
You know, I have to agree with you there. And, you know, I think one of the problems that we have here in Fall River, and not only is the press doing it, but a lot of the people on the street, is they're saying, just wait till the next election. Just wait till the next election. But we've waited for 3 elections with this guy, and every one of them he's turned around and said, I've made mistakes. And you keep electing him. You keep electing this guy. And the last one, you know, you gave him a good win with 72% of the vote, and I'm very happy that he got that to make him feel good. But guess what? he's still failing. And he's failing more miserably now.
I've got to call a timeout on that one. I've got to call a timeout. That's 72%. I know he's infatuated with that. But listen, Willie, you didn't get 72%. You got 72% of the votes that were cast. What was the percentage of voting? What was it? I can't remember off the top of my head. Was it
I don't know, 15, 16%?
15, 16%? So you got 72% of 16%, which is less than 6 or 7%. So don't tell me you got 72% of the vote, because unfortunately, we had most of the voters staying home and being apathetic. And hopefully they won't do it in the next election. Stop with the 72. Give it a break. It wasn't a mandate. You got about 6% of the actual registered voters in the city. You got 72% of the people who showed up, and it's on the people who didn't show up. They created this monster. And my position on a recall is we can't take another year of you.
No, and it's really a sad situation, though, because what started to happen is, as you recall, when you remember when the committee to recall Mayor Flanagan formed, we're going back, what, 8 months now, right? About 6 to 8 months.
Yes. Yeah.
We started to get a lot of interest, and then all of a sudden it kind of dwelled off to the side. There wasn't a lot of issues, and people just said, we'll deal with them for another year. And then what happened was, all of a sudden, pay-as-you-throw got thrown in, then increased hauling fees, and again, the people saying, no, we can't afford it, we can't do this. And uproar came up. And somehow or another, the committee to recall Mayor Flanagan and the Through Up and Fall River group, which was a group created to maintain your First Amendment rights, kind of got intertwined. That's not a bad thing. But what has become a bad thing is that people are thinking that just because people are on one group or the other, or people are on the Through Up and Fall River group and they're fighting amongst themselves, that they're not even organized. And the worst part about that is they are organized. They are organized to the hilt. I mean, it's war. They're calling them war meetings. War meetings. So that's organized. They're forming captains. They're forming, ward committees. They're doing it the right way. And the plan that they're putting forward is going to be great. And as you said about Joe Good and the articles, we presented more than enough information to her on several different places, including to Michael Gagney, and none of it was put out there. But the administration's lies were broadcast very loudly, very loudly. So we know whose pocket the press is in, because not only did they have basically a blackout and what I want to call a attack fest on the committee to recall Mayor Flanagan, but WSCI did a total blackout. A total blackout. They didn't speak anything about it. And they even tried to shut callers down. But all of a sudden, in the past 24 to 48 hours, their opinions are starting to shift. So obviously they know the people aren't going to take it anymore.
Well, you're right. And I think what a lot of people don't realize, because they look at various factions, but the fact is they are creating an impact. We were told by Joe Good that the city is going to accept a petition. Now, she also wrote that our petition failed. Well, the fact is, this petition is virtually identical. The difference is now there are so many people, there's been so much of an outcry that the city will now abide by the law, which is just take the signatures and do the petition. But the fact is that, people with different political philosophies can get together when they have a common enemy. The old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Everybody in this group there may be Republicans, Democrats, Independents, there may be whatever label you want to put, and I don't believe in labels, liberal, conservative, and whatever. We have a common enemy, and I know I'm going to be vilified for saying enemy. I'm using that in a sense of a political enemy. Okay, the fact is that what he's doing to all of us, regardless of our political philosophies, is he's breaking the back of the community that we live in. And, we see that every day. If you look at the Middle East, when we were there, the Shiites, the Sunnis, and the Kurds all got together to fight us. because they're all Muslims and we were Christians. So, but as soon as we leave, they begin fighting with each other again. So don't confuse some arguments and banter among the group as a lack of commitment to the goal. The goal is to change this government in the city of Fall River to a government that is responsive to the people.
And again, I think that what's happening here, because we're seeing the change already in the city council, that, we're on your side, we're with you. They don't say it publicly, but they're telling us in the background. And that is because this movement has changed the face of Fall River politics. Politics is a dangerous sport. If you don't have a thick skin and you can't handle it, don't be in it. I just don't want to see with this whole recall process that the same names are going to come out, put their name on the ballot, and everyone's going to turn around and say, oh, well, John Smith has been such a good city councilor, or John Smith has been such a good school committee person, I think he should be the mayor. It's time to get away from that mentality. It's time to start saying, okay, who's got the agates to turn around and just rip it right off the bull and make sure it happens, okay? Because it's going to be hard for whoever becomes mayor in this recall. It's going to be hard because even if Mayor Flanagan keeps his seat, he is going to be looking at a different frontier. I have serious doubts he will keep it, but he will be looking at a different frontier. And the people need to realize the decisions that have to be made, this man is too weak to make them. And they need to be made. And you're going to need somebody who doesn't care about the political kiss asses or the scrotum lickers, as has been put on Facebook. He or she is only going to care about the needs of the people of Fall River. And that's going to be hard because that means some things are going to have to go. So certain parks are going to not get new fancy fountains and new fancy seats, and we're going to maintain them, and we're going to maintain essential services. The fire department will not be at 120 firefighters ever. We'll never hear that again. Okay? The police department will never be at where we can't function and maintain a safe crime. We will never have to worry about trash not being picked up. You may not like the way it's done, but you won't have to worry about being picked up or being taxed to death on it. That's what we need. We need responsible government, responsible finances.
Okay, and with that, before we call in our guest, who is someone who is what this movement is all about. It's not about people like CJ and I who are branded as constant political complainers, because we actually want a government that answers to the people. It's someone who is just a person who is, she's joined the fray because she's had enough, and she was never really politically active before this, and we're going to bring her on. But before we do, bring it on to the hot seat, I'm going to say one thing about the recall. It doesn't matter whether Will goes out or in. We, as a committee, when we get that recall petition, we have allowed the people the opportunity to speak. So we've done our job. The rest is up to you. And with that, we're going to call Angie to the hot seat.
Angie.
Well, hello, Angie.
Hello, Chip. Nice to see you. Nice
Welcome.
to see you today.
Why don't you tell us what got you involved?
Well, the first thing that caught my attention actually was the whole incident that happened with Mr. Thompson and his phone. That's what caught my attention. Once I started doing some research and actually educating myself as to what was going on locally with the government and its debacles, I became quite interested and, met some really wonderful people on the Threw Up in Fall River group who, we actually met in person, became friends, and we're fighting for the same cause.
Yeah.
I noticed she didn't mention us.
Well, she was talking about the wonderful people. When
That's
she
right.
gets the pain,
No,
she'll talk to
no,
us.
no.
No, seriously. You're doing a lot of work, and I commend you, because I know you are very, very, very active. So, there has to be, and obviously, kind of tell us, we understand that you saw this, but when you did your research, I mean, what did it show you about this city that got you from basically not being involved to being really, really heavily involved in making a change, which I commend?
Thank you. Well, first of all, myself and my boyfriend do own property in the city of Fall River. We have for over 15 years, the same property, mostly filled with family and people that we know, because we try to keep the rent low so people can survive and pay bills, and, you know, people on fixed incomes who have to buy groceries, who have to buy medications, you know, and that just goes into the whole pay-as-you-throw thing, but I won't even go there yet. Once I started doing a lot of the research and, you know, found out about the Dominion lawsuit and, you know, the whole debacle that happened with that, and, you know, the extravagant spending at City Hall, those kind of things just kind of fueled my fire. So, you know, kind of got me off my bottom and, you know, get active and get involved, and that's the only way things will change. People have to get up, people have to get involved. You know, you might not like what you find, you might not like what you see, but the only way it'll change is if we get up and do something about it.
Well said.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
Well said.
You know, it's interesting because you and I also share a common profession.
Yes.
We're both nurses.
Yes.
And, you know, I have been told numerous times that my political activism will keep me from being offered jobs, and even when I've been offered jobs and I've accepted them, they said, you know, keep the political stuff away from the facility, don't bring it to work,
Right.
You know, don't take time off to handle it. And I said, that's fine, I don't have a problem with it. And most of the patients are the ones that know, and you're not supposed to talk to them about it.
Right.
But you know, they think that a lot of us are uneducated. We don't have degrees. You know, my nursing license, obviously, I got out of the Cracker Jack box. You know.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, there was that surprise prize at the bottom of the box. But there are so many people that we've met that are
Absolutely.
educated. You know, the 11% or whatever it is that have college degrees are actually involved in this.
Yes.
It's business owners, it's moms, it's dads, it's grandparents. I mean, it's even children. I mean,
Right.
children are involved.
And let me just interrupt for a second because, you know, a lot of my patients who do know what's going on don't like it, you know, and they kind of see now with the movement going that, yeah, your voice can make a difference and the things that you do can make a difference. You just have to get involved. And then on the other aspect of that, I also have patients who have no idea what is going on. And, you know, a lot of times they're the ones who bring up the conversation, and we talk back and forth just as, you know, people, and they're not happy and they're discouraged and they're already, like I said, on a fixed income, debating on whether they're gonna pay for their medications or buy their food, you know, and this whole aspect of wasteful spending and, you know, illegal trash bags, and it's just nonsense, you know, it's nonsense, and the people have to get up and fight for ourselves, and you know, we need a government and administration who's going to work for the people and not try to tax us to death and keep us in that, you know, subsidized type of city that we already live in. You know, we need jobs, we need businesses, we need people to come here and feel welcomed and want to employ the people who don't have jobs, and, you know,
But
it's become a sad state of affairs.
But how do you handle the complaint, which members of the press, people like Kenny Fiola, the mayor, turn around and say that we need more affordable housing, and all we are is a bunch of kooks. And why would a business want to come here when they see us attack the Board of Health and the City Council in the manner that we supposedly did? Which personally, I thought that was one of the best hearing meetings I've ever seen, and I think it was the most respectful one. And even the Fall River Police Department said
Handled
was
it very
respectful.
well.
Yes. But I mean, how do you handle statements like that? How do I mean? I know I'm an emotional person. You know this. So I don't pull punches, but some people do.
Yes, I have to agree with you. You know, I mean, I don't know what else I can add to that. I absolutely agree.
You know, it's difficult.
Well, I'm gonna ask you to talk about two things. First of all, I know that you've done something that's really, really, really great. We discussed at one time about you trying to get young voters
Yes.
registered, and I
Yes.
think that is something that you know is a really great thing, because we need to get young people involved, and you know, the fact that you're attempting this and doing this is great. And then after you get through with that, I want you to talk about the subject as a property owner: pay as you throw.
Okay, let me go back to the voters and getting young people involved. I have a son who is 18 years old. He just graduated from Diamond Regional 2014 class of. And
Congratulations to him.
That's my boy. I love him. He's smart. But, you know, just trying to get him aware and everyone who he knows aware. You know, I think it's really important to educate the young kids. You know, they don't take civil liberties classes. They don't really know what their civil rights are, so to speak, you know. And getting him involved and him showing his friends and us showing them and getting them involved, how important it is to register to vote, to get your voice heard, to make it count, you know, and it seems to be picking up some momentum. I mean, at first, I'm not gonna lie, they were a little kind of like, you know, is your mom crazy kind of thing? But, you know, once they know the reality of what is really going on, I mean, they're intrigued and they're motivated. So that gives me a lot of hope.
The problem is that voting doesn't happen on a PlayStation or an Xbox. You know,
well, let me just say to that.
If we took voting on that, we'd have a lot more turnout.
Right. Well, I have to say, I don't know about the more younger generation, but as far as, you know, my son's age group, you know, I don't really see any of them mainly attached to the boob tube, so to speak, you know. They're out there, they're looking for jobs. I mean, they just graduated high school. They want to make money, they want to do something, go to college. And, you know, I think they're actually trying to realize that that's what is important.
Well, you're doing something that will be invaluable to them. You know, they're out in the cold, cruel world now, and they have to realize that, you know, this city is what we make it, and if they don't participate, regardless of where they live, that government will, you know, government does not work for the people unless the people demand that government work for them.
Right.
And I think that you've given him a very, very valuable lesson, and I commend you. Keep going. And now tell us about one of your favorite subjects and mine, pay as you throw.
Pay as you throw. Well, like I said back at the beginning, you know, I'm speaking from myself personally, we have most of our tenants, our family, you know, in-laws, sisters, brothers, that kind of thing. And we try to charge them the least amount of rent that we can just to kind of cover the bills that we have to for the house. And, you know, just like my patients, my family, you know, they have to pay for medications, they have groceries, they have children. This pay as you throw is just another hit to everyone's pocketbook. And I'm not even going to go into the rainwater tax. You know, that's a whole nother subject in itself. But I mean, how much can you tax someone before you don't expect them to break, you know, and that's where we've come, I think. I think people have just been broken and now are ready to fight.
Yeah, I think you're right. And what do you think about statements when you sit there now that you're active and you watch city council meetings and you hear guys like Kenny Fiola saying that, you know, our tax rate isn't high enough, that, you know, we're a bunch of crybabies, you know, and that, you know, why don't we stop whining? And I will add to that as a caveat that, you know, Mr. Fiola makes nearly $200,000 a year. His wife's is a rep, and also I think she sells real estate, and there's a whole bunch of other things.
Right.
So they're probably making about, you know, $300,000 or $400,000 a year. Yeah, I'm itchy too. But you know, we can say about that. But I mean, when you see people, and most of these people they've gotten jobs through politics, or they're making a lot of money, and they seem to not understand the city they live in, and the fact that the people in Fall River are not wealthy. I mean, how does that make you feel?
They're completely out of touch with reality, is really how I feel. They have no idea what's going on in the city. I mean, I'm a nurse, I'm a visiting nurse, so I go to people's houses, I see them there. I work mainly with a specific clientele. I'm not in the best neighborhoods, you know, so I see a lot of what's going on in the actual neighborhoods and the streets. And, you know, with them getting $200,000 a year jobs, and why don't you cut your pay and give back to the community? I mean, you know, you want to do something for the community? Why don't we start there?
There are bad neighborhoods in Fall River? Oh, they must be up the Flint.
They're
in the Flint.
That's
They're
right.
all in the Flint.
They're all in the Flint, that's right.
Yeah. And as someone who was born and brought up in the Flint, in the heart of the Flint, and who actually technically, I guess the east end of Fall River is still considered part of the Flint, even though it's like above the core of the Flint. I was brought up in the core of the Flint, right in the center of the Flint, where the old St. Anthony the Desert Church was, at the corner of Quikasham and Alden. And, you know, and contrary to what Councilor Casey says, that, you know, everybody's poor up there, and I guess in her definition, worthless, but I won't put words in her mouth, but it's just the innuendo. When I grew up in the Flint, everybody worked. I mean, the reason they lived in the Flint was it was near the mills. And
They
most of the women worked in the mills, and most of the men worked, somewhere on construction or in the mills. And I kind of take exception to a statement like that, because there are poor people all over this city, and I think it's outrageous that a city councilor, number one, is in favor of more housing. But this is one of the problems with our city. We have a government that seems to be out of touch, as Angie said, with the reality of Fall River. I mean, we have a young city councilor that drives up in his Mercedes. We've got other people that have, they've got, and they sit there with their boat shoes and their shorts and they don't understand. I know someone who's living on $849 a month. You know a woman who's living on $839 a month. Angie runs into these people all the time. She's in the real Fall River. And I'm gonna make a challenge to Kenny Fiola and his wife. I said, why don't you move into an apartment on 4th Street and live there for a year? Donate your salaries to the city and live on the incomes that, let me pick a few of these people who you're asking to raise their taxes. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to move into a 3-decker, Kenny. You can move into the little cottage that the woman who makes, bless you, Andy, the woman who's living on $849 a month. I want to see you live on $849 a month and say that the taxes are too low.
And don't forget, I should say, we must remember what Rob Mellion said. We need to shift more of the percentage away from the business and put it on the residential property owner. So I think everyone really appreciated that move. That's for sure. We're coming to running out of time. And what are you expecting to happen on Tuesday? Tuesday is the city council meeting. Yeah. I've already heard rumors and grumblings that the group that was out in front of City Hall, the 40 people.
The misfits.
The misfits, the not credible people. By the way, you're a nurse.
Yes.
You're not credible. So, I mean, that must really look good for HICFA.
I guess it depends whose opinion that is, right?
I know, exactly. And you know what we say about opinions. But, they're saying they're going to fill the council chamber again. They did it for 40 people. They really filled that council chamber. There wasn't a seat left in the house.
Yeah, it was wonderful to see.
It really
and let
was.
me just say, I hope to see all those same exact people there on Tuesday, if not more. Bring a friend, bring everyone. Let's pack the house.
I agree.
You're right, because you know something, Joe Good, when I was speaking to her yesterday, admitted, because she was sitting in the chamber, she said there had to be at least 175 people there, and there were, maybe 200.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, stop lying and tell the truth, because the politicians know. 8 of the 9 city councils are sitting in that chamber, and they all look like deer in the headlights, because they know that the people are beginning to rise up, and they're going to hold them accountable. And Tuesday night, we'll be there.
I think we should get some music from Les Miserables and play it.
Angie, why don't you make a
Make a
statement?
CD.
Come on, make a statement.
Make a statement?
Yeah, make it. We got like a minute and 20 seconds.
I don't know.
Come on,
What should I say?
I don't know. Tell the people.
I just want to see everybody come out to the city council meeting. We need support. We have, our numbers are growing every day. We need to just get out there, get our voices heard, and if you really want to make change, now is the time to do it.
Well, that's what we say here on the show. If you want change, be the change.
That's it.
And right now, I think the change is taking hold. So it's looking really, really good. Fall River's going to do well by this. Win or lose on the recall, the people are now on notice. Are you next?
Thank you, Angie, for being here.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much,
your
Jennifer.
time.
I appreciate it so much.
And up the rebels.
Thanks for watching Spindle City Straight Talk. We'll join you again next week. Remember, Wednesdays and Fridays live at 11 on Channel 95, and Thursdays and Mondays it's re-aired on Channel 95.